What happens when a woman meets a ghost with the most pain to give humans? Like, what? What does that even mean? And then it means the ghost is mean. And then we take a look at a bizarre conspiracy theory right off of the conspiracy theory Iceberg. Is it possible that the US government is hiding information from us? Is it possible that the US government is hiding exactly what astronauts dream of while floating in space? Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. I hope you guys are having a great day too. I hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing. We got a lot of stuff to cover today. So first off, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command, everyone get on your feet and give it up for James Hernandez. Woohoo, yeah, he's running on in. He's dressed up as an astronaut. He has on his astronaut suit. He probably can't run in those things. He's probably stumbling, but it doesn't matter. He's stumbling into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. James Hernandez recently sent me a book for my birthday. Where did I put it? Let me grab it right here. James bought me this book off my Amazon wish list. It's called An Anthology of American Strangeness, Volume 1. Thunderbirds, Lost Temples, and Skeleton Ghosts. So this is awesome. There's a little drawing of a pterodactyl. I don't know why they started putting a P in front of the word pterodactyl. That's always kind of annoyed me. But here's a picture of a Bigfoot apparently riding a horse. This is my first time really opening this book up. It looks like a winner. And there's a picture of Mark Twain, but he is not riding a horse, and his bow tie's crooked. But anyways, I think this is going to be an awesome book. Thank you so much for sending it to me, James, for my birthday. That is why you are going to be our captain, our pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially, if you guys can't send me gifts, it's totally fine. It really, really is. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Few quick announcements as James is getting the Dead Rabbit dirigible ready to fly out. This Friday, October 17th, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we are doing our Dead Rabbit Radio movie night, where we watch a bunch of short horror movies. And if you can't make that, for our international listeners, we have Dead Rabbit Radio Morning. October 18th at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're going to be watching short horror movies. Usually for about 2 hours. If you want to join, all you have to do is sign up for the Patreon, the paid membership or the free membership. Either one will get you access into the Dead Rabbit Radio Movie Club. It's always been a blast. I can't wait. The morning thing, we've never done before. We'll see how scary they are in the morning. And there'll be different movies each. We're not going to watch the same movies in the morning that we watched the night before. Maybe one or two standouts, but I want it to be different for each audience. Also different for me, right? I don't want to watch the same movies 2 nights in a row. And then also real quick, November 7th through the 9th, I will be speaking at the Port Gamble Ghost Conference in Port Gamble, Washington. That has always been a blast. It's a great crowd. If you can't get there to see me, I'll be there on the first night. I still suggest you guys come out because they have ghost tours. They have a ton of other speakers, a ton of workshops. It's always a lot of fun. November 7th through the 9th, Port Gamble Ghost Conference in Port Gamble, Washington. Everything I've talked about, they're in the links below. You can check them out and click on it and get more info. Okay, James, are you ready? James, are you ready? You got that Dead Rabbit dirigible ready to go? Okay, everyone climb on board this big, beautiful blimp as James flies us out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command all the way to the big city. Nice, leisurely, long dirigible ride across the country. We're headed out to a big city. We don't know exactly where this story takes place. As we're headed out there, I turn to you and I say, hey, how you feeling? How you feeling? And you go, I'm pretty good. I go, okay, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. And then I point at someone else who's not you, point at someone else in the Dead Rabbit dirigible. It's not James either, but it's a third person. I go, hey, third person, how are you feeling? And he goes, I don't know. My knees kind of ache, and my back hurts a little bit, and my big toe is sore. And he's kind of going on and on. I look over at you and I'm like, what a complainer. He's like, I have a new version of COVID. My eyes are bleeding. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we get it. You're a sick person. You're the sickest person aboard the dirigible. You are going to be our outbreak monkey, sir. You're going to be our patient zero. This is disgusting. You're all trying to get away from him. Nope. You got to sit as close as possible to him. You're the control group. He's the sicko. So we all get off of the Dead Rabbit dirigible. We're walking around this big city. We don't know exactly where this story takes place. We put that sicko dude in a shopping cart. We stopped by a Walmart, put him in a shopping cart. We're pushing him down the street. And then we're about to meet a young woman. We don't have a real name. We'll call her Amanda. She's 22 years old. Oh, and the year is 2023. So now she's 24. But when the story took place, she was 22 because it was 2 years ago. The year is 2023. And she's recently got a job. And she's super excited about it. She's like, oh, dude, this is going to be like the best job ever. Because what she's going to do is... Oh, I forgot what it was. Let me look at my notes. Watch it be the worst job ever. I thought she was a party planner or something. Okay, well, she doesn't I think party planning would be the best job and the easiest job in the world. Because all you do is someone says, hey, I want to have a party. And you go, okay. And then you make a list of everything they need. Napkins, cups, right? A floor, a roof. It'd be pretty easy. And then you walk up to the person who wanted a party and you have this list and you go, is this what you need? And they go, yeah, totally. Cups and a floor. Sounds perfect. That'll be $10,000, please. Super easy, and they pay really well. Well, I don't know if she's a party planner. It just says that she got a job with these people, and when they would have special occasions at this workplace, they wanted her to work there. And what's more special than a party? So I imagine that that's what she does, right? So since I thought that's exactly what she was. Let's go ahead, though, and we will assume she's a party planner, and she works at this company. Jason, what? You can't make up jobs. It's bad enough you make up names. Well, just imagine she's a party planner. It doesn't really matter what she does. It matters where she works. And it doesn't matter where she works, what she does at where she works. It matters at where she works. Amanda, 22 years old, possible party planner. She gets a job with this company and they say, hey, when we have special events at this place, would you want to help us? And she goes, yeah, sure, totally. And she said this place that she's working at is 6 to 7 stories tall, and she works on every floor. Jason, maybe she's a mail woman. Maybe she's like a corporate mail lady. Spending way too much time focusing on where she doesn't work or where she does work. This is the point. She works at a building. She works on every floor. And she loves her job. That may or may not be party planning. But the building used to also be a nightclub. And each floor, it's no longer a nightclub, but each floor of the building, that used to be a nightclub, each floor had a different theme. So maybe on the ground floor, it was like, just the casual theme. It had like couches and lights and music. So people, when they first come in, they can sit on a couch and go, oh, this is pretty good music. I'm in the mood to party. But then you go up the stairs and it's goth industrial. The second floor is all goth industrial. And you're like, oh, dude, this is awesome. You're banging out to some KMFDM. I'm going to go up the next story and then maybe it's like classical jazz. It's like, because it's like a palate cleanser, right? It's the blandest of all music. It's the saltine cracker of music. Because no one ever stays long on the jazz floor. You want to go up to the next floor where it's EDM. And then you go up the next story and it's probably like, I don't know, pop music, whatever. The point is that there was a different nightclub on each floor. They were all owned by the same company and they don't own it anymore. It's no longer a nightclub or 6 nightclubs, but it's a different business that has special occasions. My point being in saying all of that stuff is that the place is haunted. I probably could have just cut through all of that and said, this young woman works in a haunted location. The reason why I included all that detail, because you might be able to figure out where it was. I tried, and I kind of came close, but I don't know. Anyways, the point is that Amanda works at a haunted place, and she loves her job. This is a big problem, a really big problem. She says one thing she's noticed, and she goes, it could just be because of bad AC. But she goes, there are certain rooms that are colder than others. And then you'd go into another room and it'd be hotter than it should be. It'd be hotter than it should be normally. Cold spots is a very common occurrence with ghosts. However, it could also be bad air conditioning. Hot spots happens so infrequently with ghostly activity. I think we've only encountered it twice over the course of this show. It's always the temperature dropping. Very, very, exceedingly rare. Almost to the point of it not existing. Does the temperature of a room go up when a paranormal presence has entered the room? The hypothesis is that a ghost is pulling out all the energy it can in an area to manifest itself, and that includes the heat energy. Like maybe like there's like wavy lines of heat in a room, and as it's manifesting, it's absorbing that to be able to move something or to talk or to simply be existing in that area. It's absorbing the heat that would normally be in that room, making it colder than normal. But all of Amanda's coworkers also agree that the place is haunted. There's no doubt that there's something going on here. That all starts back in 2023, but now in the year 2024, this is no longer, oh, I have a fun job. She ends up getting hired on full time because she's such a good party planner or whatever she does. She gets hired on full time. She is loving her job. The fact that it's haunted is more of an inconvenience than anything until in the year 2024, while she's working there, she develops AFib. Atrial fibrillation, I think is the full word of it, the full word. I had AFib for a while. It's where your heart is beating out of order, and that's kind of minimizing it. Your heart beats randomly. It's the weirdest thing in the world to feel. I haven't had an AFib incident probably at this point for 4 years, but for 2 years, they were happening every 6 months, and then they started happening every month. It's very, very disturbing because your heart will go and you would feel it moving around in your chest out of rhythm. There's no mistaking what was going on. Well, I mean, obviously the first time I didn't know what it was, but if you put your hand to my chest while I had AFib, you would feel the heart moving out of rhythm. Generally, it can be okay as long as you get it treated really quickly. Every time it happened to me, I'd have to go on blood thinners for about a month or two because that's what can get you, is because because your heart's beating out of rhythm, blood will start to pool in the aortas or the ventricles or whatever those parts of the heart are. And it doesn't take long for blood to just kind of sit there before it clots. And then if it flies out of your heart into your veins or your arteries or whatever, it could go to your brain or really any part of your body. No, I think you have to have it in your brain for a stroke. Well, she goes to the doctor and the doctor says, well, this is what you have. You have AFib. This is how we can treat it. Blood thinners will put you on beta blockers, which regulates the beat of your heart. And so she does that. And he goes, I also recommend you getting some exercise for overall heart health. So she's like, done, totally. So she goes back to the gym. She used to be in the gym, but as you get older, sometimes you stop going. She's in there on the ellipticals, punching the punching bag, lifting weights. And then she also makes sure that she walks 10,000 steps a day. And she's like, okay, I think I got this handled. It was just a one-off thing. Got my AFib treated. Let's go. But she had taken time off work to do all of that. It is very unsettling. It's very, very unsettling. She took some time off work and she got healthy and she's taking her medicine. And she goes, okay, great. I think I'm ready to go back to work. She shows back up at work. Amanda, what's up? Hey, how's everything going? And she's like, oh, everything's great. I feel good and everything. I'm just ready to be back at work. All right, do it. Go back to work. And she starts walking around the building and all of a sudden, her AFib comes back. Now, so she doesn't say that it came back the second she walked back in there. But she did say she started working again and her AFib came back. And at this point, she's not really thinking anything supernatural. She goes, I bet you the music is too loud. I'm like, wait, I thought it wasn't a nightclub anymore. Well, I think it became a nightclub. Or I don't know, okay, but the point is, it doesn't matter whether or not it is a nightclub now. I guess it does if the music's bumping. But it's no longer multi-nightclubs. It's no longer 6 nightclubs in a building. It's now possibly 1. But my point is that she starts to think, well, maybe it's the music. Maybe the music is giving me AFib. Maybe that bass is moving through me and it's sending my heart out of whack. She also says, it's a stressful job. It's a stressful job, whatever I do. She's not even for sure. She just shows up and kind of wanders around until she sees something to do, and she does it. But she says the weirdest thing is that when she shows up at work, her AFib came back. She can't figure out what's the root cause of it, and she's just generally feeling kind of icky while she's there. But the second she leaves work, she feels different. She actually, the only word she could describe it as was she feels fresh. And she goes, I did end up doing some research on the building, and it doesn't just have a haunted reputation because people say so. I mean, obviously, they're also encountering odd ghost stuff, but they're not seeing ghosts. They're just feeling kind of unsettled there. She goes, the place used to be a big nightclub. You had multiple nightclubs there. She says she found some old photos from the 1990s. She found information about people had died there, news articles where there were drug overdoses in the clubs and people have died and so on and so forth. And she just thinks that that's what's happening here. Her workplace is haunted and it's taking a physical toll on her. Like I said, I did some research on it. It's possible that where she works is in Chicago, there's a place called the former, it's weird that the former is in the official name, but there's a place called the former Chicago Historical Society building, which has multiple stories. Some say 4 stories, some say 6 stories. And it was a nightclub from 1989 to 2012. You had 2 nightclubs in there, plus restaurants and so on and so forth. And that place is haunted. We know that in that place in Chicago, the former Chicago Historical Society building has a ghost of a little girl who likes to push people down the stairs. Now, again, I don't know for sure if that's where Amanda works. You're like, wait, tell us that story. Why'd you tell us about this girl who has health problems? Well, that's the whole story. There's a little girl at the Chicago nightclub. It's still a nightclub, or I guess now it's a restaurant/club fusion called Tao Asian Bistro. But anyways, it says the ghost girl who likes to push people down the stairs or through the hallways and shove people's drinks off the top floor balcony. That's pretty much all the information. Oh, and she haunts the women's restroom. So I couldn't really do a whole segment about that. But I will agree, that's more interesting than this girl who has AFib. Or is it? You're like, yes, kind of, Jason. No. Let me finish, because I'll wrap this up. I think this is super interesting. The ghost may or may not be causing her AFib. It's very interesting that it happens when she comes back into work. It went away while she wasn't at work, then it came back when she was at work, and she's been trying to treat it ever since. Really, the only way she might be able to treat it is to quit. But she does like her job outside of her heart racing. This is my question about this story. Is it possible that we do have health ailments caused by the supernatural? And I know that sounds super like 14th century witch hunter type of stuff. But go with me on this. Put on our conspiracy caps for this real quick. If ghosts are what we think they are, which are people, spirits that have defied the natural order. You're supposed to go into an afterlife, according to pretty much every major religion and almost every minor one, that there's something else after you die that's not a ghost. Whether that's paradise, whether that's hell, or whether that's reincarnation. There's not many religions that say when you die, you are now a ghost. And everyone who dies is a ghost. And there's nothing else but earth, and you're not reborn, you're just a ghost forever. I can't think of any major or minor religion, and there might be one or two, but that is definitely not the mainstream. So a ghost, by definition, is something that has defied the natural order. And now they're here with us. And I'm talking about these lasting ghosts. I'm not talking about grandma ghost who visits you a week after she dies. I'm talking about the grandma ghost who's in the house for the next 60 years watching the grandkids grow up. You defy the natural order. The amount of energy, the amount of power it must take to stay on Earth must be immeasurable for any amount of time. Again, saying goodbye in the dreams of the people who are still alive that you didn't get to talk to. That's one thing. But it would be dying and going into the afterlife is the easy part. That's the natural part. That simply happens. I would compare it to, imagine you have a bunch of people in kayaks going down a river, and that river leads to a destination. And then every so often, there's a guy in a kayak facing the opposite direction, paddling as hard as he can, and not only not moving towards the shared destination, but moving against the current further up the river. And if you saw someone doing that, you'd go like, dude, why are you doing that? The destination's this way. But then you will also have to admire the amount of physical fitness, strength he would have to fight that current and not only not end up in the destination, but head off in the other direction. If we take that as if we accept what ghosts are the souls of people, their power level must be immense. Even a ghost that all of it does is knock things over or stands at the foot of your bed. And if you have something that is that powerful, why couldn't they affect a human body, which is, our human souls are very powerful, but our bodies are frail. Our bodies are weak. I stepped on a nail the other day when I was cleaning an area of my bedroom because I'm kind of doing a remodel here. I stepped on a nail that was sticking up out of the wood. Before you say anything, no, I didn't fix the nail. It's still sticking up. But my point is that I covered it up. My point is that I then continue to kind of clean up, and I have a broom. I was just too lazy to get it. So I was sweeping with my foot. I was just kicking dust around on my floor. Like, what do you have dust on? Why do you have dust on your floor? Because I don't ever sweep, and I don't ever vacuum. I think it's a waste of time. I especially think dusting's a waste of time. I'm moving furniture around, and it's all covered in dust. Move it to a new location, still covered in dust. I think dusting is a waste of time. And sweeping, really, like if there's garbage on the floor, I'll pick it up. If there's lasagna on the floor, of course I will scoop up the lasagna. But if there's just like dust on my floor, who cares? Nobody cares. You're like, Jason, didn't you just say you had an open wound on your foot and then you continue to kick dust around on your floor? Well, yeah. And then I go, oh, I probably shouldn't have done that. Probably shouldn't have done that, not the moving the dust around with my foot. That's totally fine. But I probably shouldn't have done that with an open wound. So then I spent probably the next hour applying antibiotic gel, like Neosporin, and alcohol wipes, and putting Band-Aids on, and then scotch tape to keep the Band-Aid on. Sounds like Beverly Hillbillies, but every 15 minutes I change the bandage. Because here's the thing. We're frail. I could have easily have gotten a really bad toe infection. Jason, clean up your house. Most people don't worry about getting toe infections at their home. Well, I didn't get one. But here's the thing. I understand human bodies are frail. Is it possible that a ghost could give you back pain? Is it possible that a ghost could give you knee pain? Is it possible that a ghost could disrupt the rhythm of your heart? If we believe they are what they are, souls of dead humans who have enough power to defy the natural order, then absolutely 100% they could do those things. I'm not saying every ghost would be able to. I think a ghost would have to be particularly strong to do it. But I think you wouldn't need the strongest Omega level ghost to mess with someone's heart. This ghost girl in the Chicago place is pushing people down the stairs. She could easily go, wait a second. If I can physically push a 180-pound person as they're walking down the stairs, why couldn't I phase my little girl hand into his chest and simply flick his heart with my finger? Why not? The real limitation, listen, I can pick up a candle and I can throw it across the room, and some ghosts can as well. Not all, but some ghosts can pick up a candle and throw it across the room. I cannot phase through matter, but a ghost can. They can walk through walls. They can appear in a location and then disappear without leaving the room. They simply demanifest So what we would call phasing and teleportation, I mean, really for lack of a better word, why couldn't they grab onto your kneecap and start playing with the sinews? Why couldn't a ghost hand reach into your body and give your kidney a squeeze? Oh, what was that? Oh, that was horrible back pain. Oh. And now here's the thing. You can argue they wouldn't do that. You're right. I think most ghosts wouldn't do that because ghosts have stayed behind for all sorts of reasons. One, they have unfinished business. Two, they died such a grisly death they can't get over that type of death. Three, that they were scared to go into the next paradise. I'm sure a lot of people are scared when they die, but not all of them get to stay behind. Not all of them are strong enough. Most ghosts wouldn't want to do this, but I believe that most ghosts could make humans sick and make humans live in pain. Just like most humans can do that, right? I could walk downtown and start punching everybody in the face. I don't do that because I don't want to go to jail. But I'm fully capable of doing it. Most humans are capable of injuring other humans. We choose not to do it. Super weird story. This is what's funny, because now that I've changed this podcast to just doing 3 episodes a week, I am being a lot more selective on the stories I cover, because I only get to tell you 6. I used to be able to tell you 10. And I really look at these stories now in a different light, and I go, I get to tell 6 stories this week. Is this a story I want to tell out of the 6? And this actually was one of the top of my list. Because it sounds goofy, a woman has AFib at work, but I think that this could be a big thing. Ghosts could actually be causing humans harm. I definitely think they have the capability. I definitely think they could cause internal injuries. Now, that's old world stuff, right? That is old world 1400s. That is older world Babylonian evil eye. Can't let the spirits in your house. They're going to make you sick. And that is true, right? That's a lot of superstitions from back in the day. But what if they were onto something? And I'm not saying every illness is caused by a ghost, but some of them, a very small amount. I don't think I would say everyone who has eye problems because a ghost poke you in the eye. I'm not saying anything like that. But there very well may be a subset of people who get sick or are in pain, and we've all heard the stories. They've done 100 tests and 100 doctors, and nobody knows what's going on with them. What if the cause of it is spiritual, not demonic, because that's a totally different bag. I'm talking human ghosts causing you to get sick, causing you to feel pain. They may not all want to do it, but I do believe most of them are capable of it. They have the power to do it. They simply choose not to. James, let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the world. Famous Carpenter Copter. We're leaving behind this place of business, may or may not be in Chicago. We're waving goodbye to Amanda. We're waving goodbye to the ghost girl. This ghost girl pushes Amanda off the stairs. James, why don't you fly us all the way out to deep space? First off, I want to give a shout out to Sustained Disgust. It's been a long time since we've covered something from him. Sustained Disgust made what I believe is the most comprehensive conspiracy theory iceberg out there. He made it a couple years ago. It's really a pity that other people have not been covering it. He made this conspiracy theory iceberg with links to every single story. You can click on the link and read about a conspiracy or read about a paranormal event that you've never heard of before. It's absolutely fascinating. So hats off to Sustained Disgust for creating this conspiracy theory iceberg, and it will be in the show notes. This one on the conspiracy theory iceberg was definitely intriguing when I read it. It said, this is the conspiracy theory: the dreams of astronauts in space are highly classified. Let's take a look at this. Sustained Disgust, when he had that statement, dreams of astronauts in space are highly classified, he linked to a interview where that information is stated. So let's go ahead and take a look at this interview here. We're going to meet a man. I've never heard of this guy before. I'm sure I've heard of him before, but I've never read anything of his. He's a big science fiction author, big author in general, named J.G. Ballard. He's made a bunch of sci-fi stuff. He wrote a bunch of sci-fi stuff, a lot of dystopian stuff. The only time I had ever heard of him was he wrote the semi-autobiographical tale Empire of the Sun, which I watched when I was a kid. I think it's a Spielberg movie. Maybe Christian Bale's in it. I don't remember. I do remember Empire of the Sun for one weird reason. Because I probably would have been like 11 or 12. And I was watching it. And it was kind of boring, right? It's kind of boring. It's just a drama about a kid growing up in China or Japan or something like that. Dramas are boring, but I was watching it. And there was a scene where this little kid was the emperor. And he's like a little guy. He's a little... And I think you're talking about a different movie. No, I think it's the same movie. There's a little boy who's going to be emperor. And the story's about him. Now even I'm wondering if it's the same movie. Because you're going to be like, whoa, nope, I don't know what you were watching. I was watching a movie when I was a young kid. I was probably like 11 or 12. And I think it was Empire of the Sun. Pretty sure it was. And it was about... Now I'm thinking J.G. Ballard's not an emperor. What movie was... Anyways, let me tell you, because this was a weird moment in my childhood. I'm watching this movie that may or may not have been Empire of the Sun, but I think it was. And there's a little boy who was going to be emperor. And he's older now, so he's like a teenager. And there are these two hot chicks come over to the temple, come over to the palace in this... I think the story takes place in Japan, but here's the movie I saw, I think, took place in China. But anyways... What movie am I talking about? The Little Emperor, maybe? Anyways, the point is, I was watching this movie when I was 12, and there was this little boy who was going to be emperor. He was raised as an emperor, and he was like in his early teens at this point, and these two concubines, or these two hot chicks show up, and they're climbing to his bed. And so he's about to bang these two girls. And I'm watching it, right? Obviously I'm a young man. I was like, 12 years old is a very pivotal time for a young man. I'm watching this movie... And the emperor, this young kid, goes, oh, yes, come to bed with me, beautiful women. And they're like, whoo, they're giggling. And one of them says, do you want to play hide under the covers or something like that? And the emperor goes, oh, yes, that's my favorite game, but I've only played it with eunuchs so far. I was like, what? What? You're like, Jason, that was not Empire of the Sun. It's a totally different movie. But I'm watching it and I go, what? I'm thinking, did he just say that he's been banging dudes his entire life? This is the first time he's with women? Huh? Like, it really took me out of the movie, in fact. I don't remember what movie it was. I just remember watching that scene and being like, huh? What? Why would he admit to that? Why would he admit that the fact that because the two girls are like, see ya, they jump out. They don't. They stay in bed with him. I mean, he's the emperor, but it's like, why would you admit to those girls and everybody watching the movie as well that you've been banging eunuchs for years? Weird. I mean, it's based on a true story. You're like, Jason, it's not the same movie. In fact, we don't think that movie exists. We think that was just you imagining it when you were a kid. Now, I'm pretty sure it was a movie, but I don't remember if it was Empire of the Sun. Anyways, J.G. Ballard may have spent his formative years banging eunuchs. We don't know for sure, but he definitely is. Listen, I'm going to tell you something. This is something I don't get to do very often. When you are reading or listening to someone who is truly intelligent, you know. Right, as much content as I consume during the day with podcasts and television and reading the newspaper and YouTube channels and all that stuff, some people are better in their certain fields than others. But I'm telling you, I implore everyone listening to this podcast is to go and read this interview that J.G. Ballard gave. It was for a magazine called Seconds Magazine. It was an interview with George Petros and J.G. Ballard. There is something when you are reading or listening to someone who is truly intelligent, which we don't get much these days. And I don't think we've gotten in decades. I think that's why it stands out so much. When you listen to someone speak and you're like, this guy knows exactly what he's saying, and he knows how to say it. There's something so refreshing about reading or listening to someone who is truly intelligent. And you guys should read this interview, because trust me, I could just read quotes. Not even quotes, passages. I was so enthralled by the things that this guy had to say. He had an opinion about everything. This interview came out in 1996 in Seconds Magazine. What's really interesting is he does address the dreaming of the astronauts, and we will get to that in a second. But really, the interviewer was asking J.G. Ballard, who's a big sci-fi author, he's written a bunch of stuff, had sex with multiple eunuchs. He's asking him, what's the future of the space program? This is 1996, and I'm going to paraphrase all of this stuff, because I could just read the quotes, but it would take an hour. So someone brilliant being filtered through my mouth, not going to get the best translation, but they asked J.G. Ballard, what's the future of the space program? And he goes, there is none. There is none. And he said, the idea that we had a space age, is something we all dreamed about when we were kids, a future of humanity in space, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. For multiple reasons. One, people aren't interested in it anymore. He said, it seems so juvenile. It seems so unserious, our space program. It started when the Russians first sent up their guy, Gargan, I think was his name. And he goes, by the time of the last manned moon mission, when that capsule splashed down in the ocean, the networks didn't even air it because people weren't interested in it anymore. That was like a 15-year period. And the nail in the coffin was the Challenger explosion. He said the space age is over with. And he goes, I don't think people, the general population of the country, they never took it seriously. It seemed juvenile. And he compared it to, he goes, when you had flight invented, when you had the Wright brothers, and when you had, who's that guy who flew across the ocean? Lindbergh, Charles Lindbergh. He goes, when he flew across the ocean, that was monumental. People took it seriously. The general population saw that as a very serious moment in human history. He goes, but the general population doesn't view the space program as that. And the reason why, J.G. Ballard said, is very interesting because I never thought about any of this. He goes, we understand as a population, as a people, that rockets are primitive. There has been no new technology come out of the launching of rockets from the time that we were building rockets for warfare, or you could even argue building rockets as fireworks, to launching people into space. He goes, it's the exact same technology, it's just bigger. And there is something very, very lame about that. There's nothing to get excited about because at the end of the day, you're just watching a giant fueled rocket launch. He goes, none of the technology that we thought would come from the space age has ever borne fruit. We launched a rocket, and then we're strapping rockets onto space shuttles. It's just very primitive. It's very, very primitive technology. And he goes, people are just bored of it. And I'm reading that and I go, I guess so. Like, obviously, I was born after the space age, or towards the tail end of it. And we were still told this idea of spaceships and Star Wars and all of this stuff. But if you think about it, no sci-fi has rockets in it. All of it includes technology that, not that it's not invented yet, it's not 19th century technology. I'm not saying that you have to have a warp drive in real life to appreciate a warp drive in a show, but none of them are rockets. None of them are rockets. You're like, Jason, I think something's being lost in the translation. And that may be. Maybe it would have been better if I had read quotes. But basically, he says, people don't take the space age seriously anymore. One of the reasons why is because it's such primitive technology. There's nothing to marvel at. All it is a giant rocket. It's brute force. Where's the elegance? Where's the advancements? They just aren't there. He also said, this is super fascinating, he goes, humans are not built to be a space-faring race. We're not. So any idea of us traveling out into the stars like all of the sci-fi novels, he goes, absolutely won't happen. We are not built for space travel. He says not only is it very damaging to the human body to be in space for a long period of time, he goes, I actually think that there is an innate fear in humans of zero gravity. I never thought about that before. I'd have to think about it. I remember once I saw a photo shoot in a model magazine, and maybe it was a video, of Kate Upton in zero gravity. I was like, oh, she's super hot. And there's something about her hair flying around, too, in zero gravity that made it even hotter. I think a beautiful woman in zero gravity is even more beautiful. Right? I mean, that would be a bizarre fetish to have. You're just wanting to bang astronauts all the time. But he is very interesting. Again, I'm dumbing it down for me, not for you, but he said, floating in space, he believes, unlocks a primal memory of falling out of a tree into the jaws of a predator. Like, we're just not supposed to float. Because the only other time our species has floated is when we were falling out of trees to the forest floor and being eaten alive by lions. He goes, we're not supposed to float, which is interesting because, again, think about all sci-fi. Outside of very few hard sci-fi tales, movies like 2001 or Gravity, I don't know if I'd say that was hard sci-fi, but you know what I mean? Star Wars, Star Trek, the sci-fi fantasies, the big ones. How often is zero gravity ever shown in any of that stuff? The only time is when something's gone wrong in the vessel. I don't think Star Wars has ever even mentioned zero gravity. So it is interesting that a key component, something that exists 100% in modern space travel, is absent from almost all science fiction. Again, I know there are different books. I'm talking more about the movies or the pop culture science fiction. The only time zero gravity comes into play is if something's gone wrong. We want to be walking around on these spaceships and sitting down in chairs. We don't want to float. And is it because of this primal memory? Think about other times a human being would float in the air. And throughout our history, it would always be falling towards something. And you would have an innate fear of that. The other day I was watching a cat watch a fire. And this is a brand new cat. This cat's maybe a year old, if that, named Evie. And she came into Sabine's house and she was watching, my friend Sabine, she came into Sabine's house and she was watching the fire. And I go, how often do animals encounter fire in the real world? Absent humans, we're talking their evolutionary path. I go, a wolf, you probably have entire wolf packs that lived and died and none of them ever saw anything on fire. Most animals probably don't have any experience with fire. The only time one would is if there was a forest fire before man showed up. So you'd have entire swaths of animals, possibly entire lifelines species that had never experienced a fire before. Ostriches running around, a herd of giraffe in the Serengeti. They've never seen a fire before. In their ancestral memory, they know what heat is, but they don't understand fire. They really didn't know what fire was until maybe like 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 years ago. These species that have been around for millions of years. Anyways, so yeah, think about other times a human would be weightless. Is when you'd be falling, and that unlocks a primordial memory. But this is very interesting. He goes on and on. I really recommend you guys reading this. It's such a fascinating interview. But he talks about... Okay, so actually, this is a callback. I'm so glad I found this is the exact quote I needed. Going back to him saying it's very juvenile, the interviewer asked him, quote, what was adolescent about the space program? And J.G. Ballard said, quote, I don't know what it is. To some extent, it's the way NASA operated. They left the poetry out of space. NASA spokesman denied all along that the astronauts dreamed in space. It would have been fascinating to know what their dreams were. They might have told us something about the human race. NASA said, this is NASA's quote, astronauts aren't the type of guys who dream, unquote. One astronaut denied he ever dreamed at all, even on the ground. It's quite clear the Apollo astronauts encountered enormous psychological pressure during the space flights. They're a heroic group of men, but if you look at the subsequent histories of them, Armstrong went to work as a professor of engineering at a provincial American university and refused to be interviewed. Others just lapsed into alcoholism, others into mysticism. It wasn't fame that they had trouble coping with. They'd suffered a primordial terror that had torn out their central nervous system. Unquote. I mean, you see what I mean? Like, I actually got chills reading that. I wasn't aware of this guy before researching this, except for the fact that he had sex with eunuchs. But I'm like, that's fascinating. Just when people who are very intelligent, they put words in certain order, they word things well, and just his thought process. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. But is it true? Do astronauts not dream? Did NASA's saying they don't dream in space. So I found a bunch of interesting stuff. One of the things is there was a book that had been published and misquoted multiple times. Apparently, one of the astronauts said that he had a dream that they had crash landed on the moon. Him and his fellow astronaut walked over the horizon and they saw a crashed capsule, a US capsule, and they walk up to it and they opened it up and it was their bodies inside of it. But that never happened. Not only did that not physically happen, he never dreamt that. It was really interesting. I'm sure a lot of my listeners were going to send me that story. It turns out not to be true. I had to read a bunch of accounts, but apparently this astronaut, I'll see if the notes might be in the links. The notes might be in the show notes anyways, but he turned to as they were flying up to space room, they might have even just been getting ready on the ground. One astronaut turned to another and said, hey, wouldn't it be crazy if we went up there and we saw a crashed ship and we were on it? Just like a weird, like, little sci-fi twist. And his buddy's like, yeah, that would be super weird. maybe don't bring that up right before launch day. It got misquoted several times over and over again because I had to go and find an ebook, a copy of the book, because I was like, wow, that would be an awesome, crazy dream for an astronaut. Do astronauts dream? Well, it's super fascinating because at the time in 1996, you can't find any accounts outside of that one, which again wasn't a dream. The guy was just telling a story or like throwing out a plot device before the big mission. You can't find any stories of astronauts dreaming. So in 1996, that would have been a fair statement to say astronauts, or we don't know what astronauts are dreaming. I guess that's the first question, because he's saying that NASA's saying they don't dream at all. They're not the type of guys who dream. But up to the year 1996, there were no accounts of astronauts dreaming, but we don't live in the year 1996. We live in the year 2025. And now we actually do have a couple stories of astronauts dreaming. It's very interesting, and I have a little spin at it at the end, and we'll wrap it up. 30 years after that interview with J.G. Ballard, in February 2025, Anderson Cooper did an interview with astronaut Sunita Suni Williams, and she said she does dream. They're on the space station. This interview is going on with these astronauts in space. She says, I do dream. When I sleep up here, sometimes I dream, and my dreams are that I'm here. Sometimes I dream, and sometimes I dream about being back on Earth. Okay, pretty average, kind of what you would expect of a dream. Nothing super shocking or anything like that. Nothing crazy. Another astronaut in that same interview, astronaut Scott Kelly, says, my dreams are sometimes about space and sometimes about Earth. It's kind of the same thing. He does add a little bit more. He goes, his dreams can be quote-unquote crazy. But it doesn't give us much more information than that. We do have a French astronaut, Jean-Francois Clairvoy, who gives us a very, very... this is what we're talking about, right? This is what we're talking about. He said when he was up in space, sometimes he would dream he was in space, but not in any sort of vehicle or space station or even a space suit. He would dream that he was just floating through space with no need to eat or drink, just floating there silently in the vacuum. Think about it. Here's the thing. We can have dreams like that, but we're not actually up there. Imagine being there in that space station, in that suit, and then you dream all of these advanced technological things, even though it's all shot up with a rocket, that old 19th century technology. You have all of these devices to keep you safe from what's outside that door. and you dream you have none of those things, and you're not panicked. You're just floating there, floating through the emptiness of space. Other astronauts have gone on record saying they had dreams while they're up in space. Some have even said they had nightmares, but we weren't able to get any explanation of, like, what are the nightmares? Would they be crazier than Earth dreams? But here's the thing. This is what I find really fascinating. You would assume that you would dream differently in space than you would on Earth. I don't know why I make that assumption. J.G. Ballard also kind of makes that assumption. I think we have a natural tendency. You're not on planet Earth anymore. Would that affect your dreams? And like J.G. Ballard goes, imagine what they could dream up there. Imagine what an astronaut's dream would be in space. Well, you go, Jason, we don't have to imagine. Now we have people we can ask. This is something that I've talked about before on the show. There is a huge difference between the manned moon missions and everything since, including the space shuttle, including the space station. They are not truly in space. Not the way we think about it. I always thought the space station was way off. I mean, obviously not so far away you couldn't get to it. But the space station is only 240 miles away from Earth. I mean, you could drive that in your car. Easily. I don't know how long it would take. If you drove a mile an hour, you'd get there in a day. Wait, no, that'd only be 24 miles. Okay, well, anyways, don't make me do math. The point is that that's not far up. Since the manned missions to the moon stopped, the farthest we've gone is 310 miles away from Earth. So yes, while it is in space, it's not really what we think of in space. You're still close enough to Earth. You're still a drive from Hood River, Oregon to, I don't know, LA? I don't think that's farther. I think that's way farther. It's 60 miles from Hood River to Portland. So if I did that 4 times, I've traveled from here to the space station. So you're still part of the world. It's a low Earth orbit. The moon is 238,900 miles away from Earth. 238,900 miles away from Earth. You couldn't drive that. Well, I mean, I guess you could, but it would take you a long time. I want to know what those astronauts are dreaming about. Think about that. You're that far from your planet. What do you dream about when you sleep? I think the government probably does have a record of what these guys dreamt, and they're not revealing it to us. You can't tell me, I mean, anything that happens with the government, especially these big operations, you get debriefed, where you get asked every single question you could possibly think of. And you're telling me over the course of multiple manned moon missions, not a single one of those astronauts dreamt. But the government being the government, they could take those interviews of what did you dream about, and never release them to the public. Either because they're too horrifying, or they're too esoteric, too depressing, or possibly even too uplifting. Imagine if every astronaut, once they leave the planet, every single night they dream about harmony on Earth and all of the bad things going away with nothing but the good things remaining. Experience for the first time in their lives true peace. Dreams like that every time they go to sleep. Do you think the government would reveal that information? Oh, here's how they say that the world could be made a better place? No. They definitely wouldn't be revealing that the astronauts were plagued by horrendous nightmares every single night. Unearthly entities lurking in the darkness just outside the rocket, clawing, scratching to get in, not into the ships, but into the minds of the astronauts. Having that dream every single night. Astronauts today, listen, I salute you. It's a lot of hard work. I couldn't do it. But you're not the astronauts who are going to the moon. It'd be the same thing, the guy who takes the tugboat and drives out into the bay, does a little fishing, comparing himself to Magellan in a galleon crossing the unexplored oceans. Yes, they're both on the water, but there's no comparison between the two. None. They're both on the water, they both have boats. So, Sustained Disgust, I don't know where he got the ideas for his conspiracy theory Iceberg, but it truly is an amazing work. I recommend all of you guys checking that out. And I recommend you guys reading more of this interview, because I really probably did it an injustice just to fit everything into the podcast. There's way more stuff he talks about, but I do think that this one might be true. That the dreams of astronauts who have traveled farther out into space are not being shared with us. The question is, why? Maybe they dreamed of poetry. Maybe they dreamed of horrors. Maybe they did dream of nothing at all. But even that would be notable. In a way, you think your connection with Earth is severed when you go that far out. And not only do you not have any dreams, you don't even have a subconscious at that point. It would really explain things in a way. Imagine if the farther you went out, you lost parts of the human mind. And it would show how we truly are all interconnected here on Earth, regardless of religion or politics or race or anything like that. You lose that tether. I don't know. I mean, it's really, really fascinating stuff. It's one of those stories that, as we change the format, I wanted to share with you. Really makes you think. Did they classify these dreams? And if so, why? DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today. Have a great one, guys.